blacks versus Jews. That is what this has come to. There are anti-Semitic attacks propagated by the black population, both in America and in England, headed primarily in America by the black Hebrew Israelites, and we've seen how they are to people, most notably and most publicly with the ones in high school, the Catholic kids, where the gentleman, Nick, was just waiting. Then the drummer came up to him. So he waited. He was smiling at this guy, saying, "What the hell is happening here?" And all the chants that were happening before that were by the black Hebrew Israelites. So if you get to see that the long uncut version, then you'll see the vile verbal abuse that they were spouting. But it isn't just verbal that they perform, of course. It is also physical, and it is quite widespread. But we're going to pick out an example here in order to show you an example to then give you the wider idea. So we have the Monsey stabbing in New York City, with the mayor vows action on anti-Semitism crisis. Obviously they don't wish to tell you who is actually performing these attacks, but nonetheless they will go for it. And it took them so long to name Grafton Thomas, and they're not going to give any idea of what the motive might be behind this. And then of course you've got the other female attacker, who then was let out without bail. Just, oh yeah, she's just a free woman. So, well, it seems like your justice system is failing you then. And of course the Jews have something to say about this. The Orthodox ones, the ones who are quite obviously Jewish, because they are the ones that are attacked. It is quite obviously done on basis of religion. And if you look at someone like Louis Farrakhan to say, "I'm not anti-Semite, I'm anti-termite," you can understand where this thought comes from. Obviously that's not black Hebrew Israelites, that's more a Islamic background. So the Jews are getting it from everyone, essentially. Everyone that the left doesn't wish to talk about. So they will publicly say, "Oh yes, well, we're clearly against anti-Semitism, we are anti-Semite, if you will." But of course, because they are pro-black, they then can't decide how they're supposed to react to these things. All they can really do is say, anti-Semitism bad, but we can't explain why these attacks have been happening. We can't name the problem, definitely not. Even though it is a fine example of the Pareto principle to say a square root of any given set is responsible for half the outcome. So square root of the population is responsible for half the violent crime, although it's more like 13% instead of 10. But that's a different 1350 question. So New York Mayor Bill de Blasio has announced a series of measures to tackle a crisis of anti-Semitic attacks following a mass stabbing. Mr. de Blasio said security would be stepped up in Jewish areas and schools would teach students to tackle hate. Or arm them, but we'll get to that. At least 5 people were injured in the knife attack at a rabbi's house in New York State on Saturday. Donald Trump called for unity to fight the evil scourge of anti-Semitism following the attack. And, I mean, as many things as you want to call him, you can't really call him anti-Semitic, given his daughter's affiliations with Judaism, wishing to enroll, if that's the right word for it. Let me enroll in this coalition. I need this intensive course. I should go to a camp for this, of intense concentration for the Jews. Hang on, wait. let me wash off this atheistic thought in those showers. How do we get there? By train. Okay. Anyway. Yeah, so witnesses said the attacker burst into the house in Monsey, northern New York City, which was hosting a Hanukkah celebration, pulled out a large knife and began stabbing people. And that is the same across the West, really, where people understand that during the Sabbath as well, that Jews can't do anything, basically. They're not allowed to work, so everything has to be prepped beforehand and timed. And the primary issue they get is with security services, that they can't arm their alarms or their security systems during the Sabbath. And there isn't a widespread solution to this yet. And therefore, intruders, robbers, thieves, burglars, they know this and will therefore attack and break in during this time. And hey, you can look at who performs those robberies as well, but that's not quite the issue we're getting at here. Seeing as this isn't just opportunistic burglaries, this is targeted attacks with weapons. So the suspected knifeman, named by police as Grafton Thomas, 37, of Greenwood Lake, New York, has been charged with attempted murder. He pleaded not guilty and is being held in jail with his bail set at $5 million. Well, if you think that the people you're attacking aren't people, then that's quite understandable if you think you're not guilty. On Sunday night, his lawyer Michael Sussman issued a statement on behalf of his family, which said Mr. Thomas has a long history of mental illness and hospitalizations. Well, if you're following the Black Hebrew Israelites or Louis Farrakhan, then yes, I can understand a mental illness. If you have an IQ of less than 72, then you are clinically insane and can get off with the insanity plea. And then if you want to look at the race IQ relations, you can see how this would be quite a popular defence. He has no history of, like, violent acts. And why does it just sound like a Jersey girl? He has no history of, like, violent acts and no convictions for any crime, it said. He has no known history of anti-Semitism. Bullshit. And was raised in a home which embraced and respected all regions and races. He is not a member of any hate groups. Well, that depends how the ADL wish to define it. And the ADL have a terrible outgroup bias. The Anti-Defamation League, that they seem to prefer the blacks over the Jews, and then they can't decide which is which. And then that's the same, because it's then the Jews who are actually religious Jews, obviously they're going to call a spade, and they're going to say, well, yeah, we have a problem with the blacks, job done. But the atheistic, the more cultural, or almost ethnically Jewish, but it's more just on heritage lines, though they were born into it instead of they choose to embrace the Jewish life, they would then say, yeah, we prefer the black people, because they're not obviously Jewish, so they're not affected by it, if you wish to go down the whole lived experiences route. So de Blasio, of course, didn't wish to address the elephant in the room, the monkey in the jungle, okay, sorry, had announced extra police patrols in 3 areas of Brooklyn with large Jewish populations following a spate of anti-Semitic attack incidents. The spirit we bring today is one of resolve and relentlessness. We will keep adding as many measures as it takes to end this crisis, he told reporters on Sunday. And so on and so on and so on, just not addressing the main issue. But we have a similar thing in London, that we have the anti-Semitic marks have been written here as well. And also when people wish to say it's far right, and I've said this before and I will say it again, so well, what do you mean by far right? Is that then white supremacy? Because it seems that, and the BBC obviously didn't mention it here, that the black attacks on the Jews have been called by many as they're white supremacist attacks. It's like, well, would you like to look into this and see how it's black people causing the issues, and then maybe deciding, oh, maybe it isn't white supremacy, but can they be far right attacks if they're black supremacy? Is that far right, or is that now far left, or is that just irrelevant? And it's actually the proletariat versus the bourgeoisie, because the Jews are richer, in which case this sounds a lot more like socialism. And, oh, your nation state is important, you want you're an ethnic state, in which case you're very nationalist, so you are a national socialist. Yes, we know all about those guys who are apparently now far right, if they're the National Socialist Workers' Party of Germany. So that doesn't quite follow, but we can't expect logic from the left, of course. We just have to try and understand what the hell they're talking about, and then we can actually address them on their own terms, because we can't expect them to try to understand anybody else. They will just try and shut you down. So you have to pretend to be one of them, to then show them the truth, and it takes a lot of effort, but hey, you know, somebody's got to do it. So they say anti-Semitic graffiti has been dubbed on a synagogue and several shops in North London during the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. The Star of David, a Jewish holy symbol, and 9/11 were spray painted in Hampstead and Belsize Park, possibly referencing a conspiracy theory. Possibly. Yes. It could be because of the accounting error of $2.3 trillion, and then, 2 days later, 9/11 attack. Oh, that's very convenient, isn't it? Now everybody just forgets. You can go back to JFK talking about the secret state as well, the deep state, if you want, the secret circles the people move in. And then they say it could also reference Kristallnacht, an organised nationwide attack on Jews which began in Germany on 9th November 1938. Let's not get into Kristallnacht, otherwise you're really going to annoy the Stalinists against the Trotskyites. Yes, that is a bad reference. We don't have time for it right now. So the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, said on Twitter, "Well done. I'm pleased with..." Sorry, no. I'm translating to what he actually means. He says, "This makes me sick to my stomach," adding that anti-Semitism like this had no place anywhere, and certainly not in London. He also said that residents could expect more police patrols in the area. Yes. I bet that makes the Jews feel really safe. When a Muslim mayor decides to crack down with extra police patrols in the Jewish areas. That's reassuring. A South Hampstead synagogue spokesman said, "This is a time for people of all backgrounds, of all faiths, and of none to stand united and show our determination that we do not tolerate prejudice, hate and division on our streets or online." yada yada yada. Yeah, you're not going to address that it's the blacks that are doing it. No, of course you're not, you're the BBC. So, who are they actually going to address as somebody who has done an attack? Well, it's not on a synagogue, because that would be too easy, but they have mentioned a Texas church shooter. They've named him already, Keith Thomas Kinnunen, who has been identified as the shooter. And what I like about this is that in response to the Palm Springs church shooting, which Stephen Williford, I believe it was the guy who, I think it also had an AR-15 and chased the gunman away, and that's what stopped his massacre early, and caused him to drive off the road. Yes, it was a good guy with a gun stopping a bad guy with a gun. The response, particularly in Texas, was to say, okay, well, if you're going to church, ordinarily you're not armed, you're an easy target. So instead of that, how about you can arm yourself? Because we believe good guy with gun does stop bad guy with a gun. After all, that's the premise of the police. So, what can we do about this? They say a motive has not been established. This is white on white crime. I know, shocker, it never happens. But nonetheless, this is it. So, they say that Jack Wilson, a volunteer member of the church's security team, said he fired a single headshot to take down the gunman during the service. Probably better than the police marksman. Which was attended by 240 people while being live streamed on social media. Yeah, 2 people were killed. But, sorry, 3 including the shooter. Out of 240 possible people. Jack Wilson, who says he doesn't think of himself as a hero, is a hero. He's a bloody good guy. And he said the only reason he waited was because of people getting in his way. So just get out the way. The shooter then turned to look at him and he shot straight in the head. Job done. Not going to wait for the police, however many minutes they take for their response. No, good guy with a gun, inside, stopped. How many other people are actually going to try this shit in the future if they know, well, actually they're armed and they're not afraid to use their weapons? And that's what I always say is the answer. That ordinarily, this is even with thieves of, for robberies, that they would try and distract the police and then have more time to do what they want to do before the police get there. So, okay, cool. But now if you view everybody as the police because they're all armed and know how to use their weapons, then you're going to have a hard time and you're not going to try it. Part of the same reason why Japan was apprehensive about invading America. Not that it ever got near to that stage, but they weren't really prepared to even try to go ahead with it because they knew everybody was so well armed. More guns than people now, after all. So the church there was saying, well, hey, we're trying to be nice people, why would they do that? There is no motive, and so on. They named 2 victims as well, OAPs as well. And they do also mention the new law came into effect in Texas that allowed licensed handgun owners to carry weapons in places of worship. Well done, you need it. Tell that Thomas Beckett. In 2017, 26 people were killed when a gunman opened fire at a Baptist church in Sutherland Springs, Texas, during a Sunday service. Sutherland Springs, not Palm Springs, sorry. Yep, and they don't mention that he was also stopped by a good man with a gun, because of course they don't. That would be very difficult for the BBC's narrative. But credit to them that they do say the attorney encouraged other states to allow citizens to carry concealed weapons for self-defense, as he added, this is the model for the future. So, seeing as the police don't seem to be doing a good enough job because the powers that be can't address the elephant in the room and actually deal with the issue, I'm not saying you need to crack down on blacks as an ethnic group quite clearly, but there are underlying issues, predominantly fatherlessness, and if you have a high social welfare state, that women then marry the government or the state instead of their partners, then obviously that's going to be an issue. And if you have the parents away from home because they both need to work to support their children, that is also going to be an issue. So you can address that top down if you want, so that people don't have to do that. But as far as it comes for the individual, allow them to protect themselves in the intermediate time, and that'll disappear. I mean, if you don't know how to deal with the child grooming gangs and the rape gangs in the north of England, then I'm pretty sure just arming the families of those that have been affected would wipe out those gangs within a week. They would be gone. So if you really wanted to fix the problem, that's how you do it. Not that I'm suggesting vigilante justice, but as is the same case in days gone by in the West Country, when gypsies came to town and they were dealt with, nobody's going to be telling the police who did it. Everybody's going to have an airtight alibi, and the police aren't going to be that interested in actually investigating because they know it's less hassle for them because, hey, the people have sorted out the problem themselves. So maybe have some more belief in your own people, have some trust in your communities, and actually respect the intelligence of the people you're supposed to be serving. But as always, let me know what you guys think down below. Always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you for the continued support, especially over the Christmas period. It does mean a lot. Yeah. So until next time, have a good one.